Maxine Waters resorts to tears as Democrat leaders decry her comments, says, "Focus on the children," by Tyler Durden for ZeroHedge.com. Having been lambasted by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, as well as President Trump and most of Congress, Maxine Waters decided it was time to bring out the big guns, bursting into tears on MSNBC. And she used the children to deflect away from the harassment comments she made over the weekend. And we can forward to 25 minutes and 15 seconds to see the crocodile tears flood out. But let's just take a listen here as we start this.
Trump Watch Monday, June 25th, 2018. Do you see what he's doing? Do you see how Donald Trump rallies his troops? In this latest one, he's calling for all people suspected of crossing our southwest border to be taken immediately back across the border. On the surface, it's unconstitutional. While the courts will never let it stand, Trump's mere proposing of it, the sheer simplicity of it, will sell with tens of millions of people. Will say that Donald Trump opposes illegal immigration and is ready to do something about it, while his critics won't. It has added firepower. By proposing to send them back over the border, Trump is drawing the fire of the mainstream press. The headlines making shock and exclamation points. The incoming comes from everywhere. The media, the Democrats, the Latino advocacy groups. And what does all that do? It makes Donald Trump the last man standing against illegal immigration, the last man standing against open...
No, we don't want open borders, and we know that the mainstream media is going to dislike that. But your narrative isn't flying. You're losing big time. But let's take a look at Maxine Waters here.
Like who hits the eject button and how you get out of it, and that remains extremely unclear at the moment. Dan Decry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris.
Next, the president targets Congresswoman Maxine Waters after her call for protests in person of Trump administration members when they're out in public. Congresswoman Waters is standing by, joins me to respond right after this. The Trump administration's cruel decision to separate children from their parents at the border prompted
give it up, you idiot.
against Trump administration officials and allies, and not just online. In Virginia, protesters played a recording of crying, detained migrant kids outside the home of DHS Secretary Kristen Nielsen while she appeared to be home.
Yeah, probably about 30 protesters, yeah.
Both Nielsen and Senior Advisor Stephen Miller were also confronted by protesters verbally while trying to eat in Mexican restaurants. In Florida, meanwhile, Attorney General Pam Bondi left a movie theater where she'd come to see a documentary about Mr. Rogers as citizens heckled her, yelled "shame on you," and asked if Mr. Rogers would take children away from their parents. And most famously, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders was asked to leave a Virginia restaurant called the Red Hen over the weekend when the owner objected to her role in pushing and defending Trump administration policy, prompting a debate over whether members of the administration should be able to lead a public life without facing public consequence.
But do you fail to say that the owner stalked her even to the other restaurant and tried to start a protest there? You don't say that, do you?
My next guest, Representative Maxine Waters, made her feelings clear.
Oh, we know.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Those comments precipitated a significant backlash from members of both parties and from the president, who, we should note, lied about what Waters had said and appeared to then threaten her with violence. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, an extraordinarily low IQ person, has become, together with Nancy Pelosi, the face of the Democratic Party. She's just called for harm to supporters, of which there are many, of the Make America Great Again movement. Be careful what you wish for, Max. As you just heard, Maxine Waters did not in any way call for harm to Trump supporters. The president lied. Joining me now to respond.
Do you see, how could you listen to mainstream media? The president lied. No, she didn't. He did not lie. She specifically said to gather groups together to harass Trump supporters and people in Trump's cabinet. So you are fake news.
Representative Maxine Waters of California.
It's on tape.
Congressman, let me start with this. You did not call for physical harm or attacks on people, but you did say create a crowd and push back on them. And so I wonder, do you worry that people interpret that as a call to essentially mob intimidation, to usually use a sort of mass of people to physically threaten people in public spaces? Is that what you're calling for, and what do you think of that?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, you're absolutely correct. I did not call for harm for anybody. The president lied again. As a matter of fact, I believe in peaceful protests. I believe
that was what she was spewing, a peaceful protest, when she was making those statements that are on film, Maxine. So how could you stand there? Do you honestly think, even your idiot Democrat constituents, do you honestly think that they're as stupid to believe that what you said on film is not what happened? I mean, really? That's what she was calling for when she was saying, when they call you, get down there wherever they are to harass people? No, and it's all on film. And she says President Trump lied. The only liar here, Maxine, is you and your Democratic Party.
That
and MSM
is at the centerpiece of our democracy. I believe that the Constitution guarantees us freedom of speech, and I think that protest is civil protest.
She's sickening.
So I don't know why the president chose to stretch that out and try to imply that I was causing harm. As a matter of fact, the president calls for more violence than anybody else. But let's not talk about that.
Where has Trump called for violence? Did you see any conservatives causing any violence? The only violence that we have seen was from your leftist idiots. That's the only place we've seen violence. You know, how could people stomach these people, you know?
Focus on the children. That's what...
No, let's focus on our children. Let's focus on our children, not illegal children. We can't fix the world, Maxine. We're not paying for that.
All about. It is about the fact that children have been snatched from their parents' arms. They're in cages, they're in jails, they're in prisons.
Really?
The parents don't know where they are.
It's been going on for
this
decades.
Administration can't tell us where they are. These parents want to know where their children are. Any parent would want to know where their children are. Most parents in this country, seeing what is going on, where children have been separated from their mothers and their fathers, would feel absolutely outraged about the fact that that is happening. That's what we've got to focus on. This administration had better come up with a plan by which to connect these children and their parents. That's what I'm talking about.
No, we're not going to come up with a plan. How do you like that, Maxine? Even though Trump signed the executive order, but you know what the thing is? He's just going to bust them all out all together. And whether that idiot Pryor said that it's not going to fly, oh yes, it is going to fly. We don't need judges. We don't need anything. And you know what? How about all the ones that get in? We're going to ship them over to Maxine Waters' mansion so she can take care of them, since she cares so much about the children.
I hear you on that, and I want to sort of follow up the question that was posed by the Washington Post editorial board. But first, I also want you to respond to your Democratic colleagues who have sort of distanced themselves from your comments. And these are people, I should be clear, that I think agree with you fundamentally on the policy, right? They are against the family separation policy. They think it's outrageous and morally abominable. But you had Nancy Pelosi said that we must strive to make America beautiful again and calling for civility. You had Chuck Schumer, who has not been particularly vocal or visible on this particular issue, but says, I strongly disagree with folks who advocate harassing folks if they disagree with you. What is your response to your Democratic colleagues who say you are out of line, and why do you think they're telling you that?
They don't really say I'm out of line.
Oh, yes, they did.
What they're trying to do is find a way to talk about civility without attacking me or anybody else. As the leader of the Democratic Party, I expect that she would do everything that she could to make sure nobody believes that Democrats are out here harassing anybody or causing any violence. And I think that she was very responsible in the way that she said that. They're not attacking me. They're trying to make sure that people understand understand that we're focused on the children and that we're not focused on this diversion, particularly the way the president would have it sound and make it out to be. And again, let me just tell you this. I am focused on the children. I've had sleepless nights about the fact that these children we do not know where they are. The parents don't know where they are. Why can't the administration come up with a plan to connect them?
You're going to have many sleepless nights if somebody started to prosecute you, because for what you did, it's all on film. You could face 5 years in prison for what you did, Maxine. So I bet you're going to have a lot more sleepless nights if somebody chose to prosecute you for your actions. It's against the law what she did.
And make it public so that we can all get more comfortable with the fact that they are going to be reconnected. They should not have been separated in the way that it was done in the first place. This president will try to do everything to divert our attention. He calls me names, he calls everybody names. As a matter of fact, we expect that from him. But we've come too close to normalizing this president. Listen to some of his statements during his campaign and since he's been
Where are
president.
her tears?
His violent statement, so I'll quote, "I'd like to punch him in the face." Another violent statement, "knock the crap out of them."
Yeah, good.
Maybe he should have been roughed up. And then he goes on to say, "Try not to hurt him, but if you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it." Now, if that's not creating violence and supporting violence, what is? I've said nothing like that.
Right.
I talked about peaceful protests.
Right.
Yeah,
I just
right.
want to be clear. You don't think that's a good idea. I mean, you're like you don't approve the president's language there. You wouldn't call for people to physically threaten, intimidate, or to attack anyone. I just want to be crystal clear on that. Because
To intimidate, of course. What do you think? Get the crowd together. And Trump is just talking out of the top of his head. He's not instigating anything. There's a difference. There's a difference the way Trump said those comments. He's not instigating it. Come on. What a difference. What a difference. You see how they twist things around?
Absolutely not. I would not in any way support any violence, anybody being hit or beaten, or then say to them, "I'll have to get you out of jail." This president is guilty of all of that. Don't forget that they created some of the most violent protests that we've ever seen.
Which violent protest that they've created? Which violent? Do you see which violent protest? Which violent protest? You mean the Antifa? They're for the Democrats, those protests. Where were the violent protests on the conservative side? Can anybody refresh my memory if they took place?
By President of the United States of America. I'm for the children. I'm for the parents. I want those children connected back to their parents. I want this president to come up with a plan where he can make us all comfortable that this is going to be done. Now, on the entire question of immigration, he's coming off even in another place. He's confused people, but he's not guaranteed us that he's going to get these children back to their parents.
Oh, yes, he will. The minute they come over, he's going to bust them all right out. He's going to guarantee you that much. And that other idiot that said that it's not going to fly, oh, yes, it will fly. We don't need judges and we don't need illegals. Just get the buses and ship them back to where they came from. Lock, stock, and barrel. And I didn't see her crying crocodile tears, so whatever. She should just be shipped out to the funny farm. That's where Maxine Waters belongs.